So I found a little article on McGill and King Tut's sweet tooth. Among the treasures discovered during the famous 1922 archaeological excavation of King Tutankhamun's tomb was a jar of honey. Archaeologists tasted it, brave souls those archaeologists, and to their amazement found it to be as sweet as, well, honey. Hey everybody, welcome into the Beehive. I'm your host, the Bee at LLC, and this is where we stack precious metals like it's pollen and nectar. Our pollen is silver and our nectar is gold, preserving our wealth as honey of old. Like ancient metals, we hold our own. So I want to talk a little about my channel and the focus of it. Why do I say those things when I start off my auctions and whatnot, intros to the video? Well, I'm sure you've heard the term busy bee, and that's what I picked as my logo, was a bee. And I got some honey here. This particular honey came from the back hives of another gentleman on YouTube. Let's see if I can zoom in on his poker chip here. He goes by Clear Lake Drive. That's that gray one on the right there. Sorry, it's not the best angle here, but I got another great channels. So why do I talk about honey and bees and pollen and nectar when my channel is a precious metals channel? Well, busy bees go out, they find the flowers, they find the pollen and nectar, they bring it back and they collect it and they store it away for safekeeping, and it lasts a really long time. And my family has been living off this particular honey from Clear Lake Drive for the past few weeks, and I really appreciate it. Thank you, Clear Lake. And so it's said that when they got into some of the tombs from the Egyptians, that there was honey stored there with them and that the honey was still edible. So I found a little article on McGill and King Tut's sweet tooth. Among the treasures discovered during the famous 1922 archaeological excavation of King Tutankhamun's tomb was a jar of honey. Archaeologists tasted it, brave souls those archaeologists, and to their amazement found it to be as sweet as, well, honey. Due to its low water content and acid pH, this bee regurgitation is one of the few foods that does not spoil. The sticky goo starts out as flower nectar containing about 60% water. Bees add enzymes that break down the complex carbohydrates to simple sugars and then store the nectars in honeycombs where the water content is reduced to about 18% through evaporation. Sweet chemistry. But it stores for a very long time. It has medicinal capabilities. A lot of things that I look for in precious metals. And so we refer to the precious metals. We talk about bees. Another one of my focuses is on ancient coins and the history there, and how some of the coins, the Greek coins that I like to collect from BC, have so much imagery and say so much to me without having any words. And in all of these different cultures, they all had some type of spiritual thought process within their culture. And they might have all varied in different ways, but is one of the things that my channel did talk about, and I think it's in my very first intro video, is that back in that time, all of those cultures had some type of spiritual understanding, and that there was some type of spiritual reality mixed with their physical reality. And so today I'm going to talk a little bit about there's a video here I'm going to share, and it talks a little bit about the monetary system and also gold and silver and spiritual aspects of things. This is Kinesis Money. This is their YouTube channel. I'm just going to take a few little clips from their latest video here. This was from today, a few hours ago. And I just thought it was a great conversation. You go over to Kinesis Money, subscribe, watch this video. It's called The Multipolar World, featuring Dr. Stefan Lieb. And I thought it was really informative and good. I'm just going to take a couple little pieces here for educational purposes and talk about them. So this is, again, Kinesis Money. I have, let me come back here. I have a 1 ounce Kinesis piece right here with a silverback holding up a believed to be 1,000 ounce bar with his spear there. And on the back, we have silverback precious metals, which is the same place that I got this Comex slice out of a 1,000 ounce bar off the Comex from silverback precious metals. And some great people, Jim Forsyth, that was with Citizens for Sound Money, is the same conglomerate, and unfortunately he's had an accident and passed, and was a big part of the stacking community, helping to legalize and take away taxes on gold and silver in the States. And really great guy. And he, along with Kinesis Mint, have put out these bars. And so this is them, and this is one of their bars. Stick around for my auctions if you'd like to pick one of those up. But back to the video here. I'm going to listen to a couple quick minutes, and then we'll talk about it.
Trying to write one more book before I go to the next place on my final journey, but whatever. And I'm trying to complete that. And it does have to do with a lot of different things that America just lost. I think basically starting with Vietnam and, the assassination of Kennedy, both Kennedys. And that sort of cleared the way for wars and spending massive amounts of money and the end of the gold standard. I mean, I do not think it's in any way a coincidence. I think it was foretold in retrospect that when we left the gold standard and became free to spend as much money as we wanted, I mean, also the petrodollar, we really replaced the gold standard with the petrodollar. We could spend as much money as we want. Materiality took over our existence, and that was the end, and it's been accelerating. And we're coming up against a culture right now in China. I have to be careful because people often take me for a Chinophile. I'm not. I could not live in China, even if I have trouble speaking English, much less learning Mandarin. But I could not, even if I knew Mandarin fluently, I don't share their culture. I would never feel at ease. I mean, you see these bloggers or YouTubers that, have spent 10 years in China, but they're back in Canada or wherever they once lived, because it's hard to be with people whose culture you do not share. And I couldn't be there. I don't particularly like the autocracy there. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff I don't like there, but I do totally respect their culture. And it's a spiritual culture. I mean, basically, and one thing about spirituality, it's you talk about it and people look at you like you're, some sort of Buddhist monk. But no, I mean, every country in the world, every country and culture has some tradition of spirituality. And you know what goes along with that tradition? Without exception, I'm talking China, India, Muslim countries, gold. Gold is a critical feature. It's a sacred feature. It's considered, in the Chinese New Year, they have two colors, red and gold. And gold is not worldly. I mean, gold is otherworldly. It signifies something that's sacred. And it's true in every single religion. It's not just something you can, yes, it's a store of value. It's the greatest store of value, but that's not an accident. It's something that's totally special about the metal. If you read about the metal, I mean, it's extraordinary. I mean, it's not something you could take for granted. It's not, in this material world, we believe everything, including us, was created by some sort of cause and effect. It doesn't make sense. I mean, I think that basically 1,000 or 500 years from now, they'll look at BC and AD, but they'll also look at BD and AD, before Darwin and after Darwin. I mean, when Darwin came along, it was sort of an excuse to turn to materiality, that we're just made out of, our consciousness. Everything is just material. That's nonsense. I mean, I'm not going to get into all the discussions there, because I mean, I think gold is much more interesting to talk about right now. But that was a terrible thing for the West. I mean, and there was no reason for it. We have no evidence of Darwin. We have all evidence of the world against it. I'm not going to get into this. I mean, if you want, I hope to finish a book. Okay, I can't advertise it because I haven't finished it yet, but it doesn't make sense, and we lost a lot of our spirituality.
Okay, and so yeah, he's just kind of talking about the history and the monetary system and gold and silver and other cultures and how they view it. And that, there's just kind of, at least in the past, been a spirituality that coincides with these things. And I'm going to skip forward a little bit in the video to another interesting part. Or it's all really interesting. You need to go watch the whole thing. But
yes, we helped Russia during the Second World War. But we gave them money, but they sacrificed 20 million people, something like that, in Stalingrad, and they beat the Germans. I mean, they should get some credit for that, and Putin should get a little bit more credit. Again, I couldn't live in Russia, but I could come closer there because I do share a lot of their culture. I mean, I like their music. I mean, Rachmaninoff, Tchaikovsky, etc. But this whole thing is ridiculous. But coming back to China, this is probably the most ridiculous thing ever. Historians are not going to believe this. I mean, I honestly don't think so. The sanctions that we have, with the military sanctions against Russia, the economic military sanctions against Russia, have obviously totally failed, completely failed. In every which way. It inspired them to really ramp up their military production, everything else. Now they're an incredibly formidable military power. I don't think for a minute they plan to attack NATO or any of this other stuff. I mean, if anyone reads Putin's speeches, I doubt that anyone that has criticized him has ever read one of his speeches. And I never have, but I've read English translations, and I have Russian friends that have, told me that these are valid. I mean, he refers to Sermon on the Mount. What American politician makes any spiritual references, true spiritual references in their speeches? I haven't heard one since Kennedy. Maybe Reagan occasionally. I don't really remember, but Kennedy was filled with them. I mean, especially when he was visiting Ireland. Khrushchev was a monster. He was next to Stalin. I mean, he was probably more of a monster than Stalin. Stalin had an excuse, at least. He was paranoid, but he was paranoid because everybody hated him. And, he came out of the Bolsheviks, which were basically Jewish, and he wasn't. And he thought everyone was trying to assassinate him. And he may have been right. I'm not justifying anything Stalin did. He was a true monster. True, complete monster. Khrushchev was at least as bad. He didn't have the opportunity to show how bad he was because he wasn't fighting a war, and he wasn't, just randomly doing things. But he was a real deal. He was awful. Despite that, Kennedy and Khrushchev had a constant dialogue going, and that was one reason we avoided, catastrophe during the Cuban Missile Crisis. They have these letters that they have found between Khrushchev and Kennedy.
Okay, so yeah, he goes on. I want to, not take him out of context. He talks about how he doesn't want to be, viewed as anti-American. He's just looking at all of history and looking at things in a big picture way and talking about cultures and whatnot. And so I have some vinyl here, and he was talking about Tchaikovsky, and so I have some vinyl there from Tchaikovsky and whatnot, and that's because my wife is Russian, and I as well, and I'm American, and I love what our founding of this nation was supposed to be founded on, and freedom, and so I don't want to be viewed in another way either. However, I do want to point out once, like if in my case where I married a beautiful Russian woman, and she is beautiful in every way, and I was never of a mind to judge someone, because of where they were born or whatnot. And this, after marrying her, it just makes it that much more understandable or valid, that there's no, just because someone is born across an imaginary line in the dirt does not mean that everyone born on the other side of that imaginary line is a horrible person. And you heard some ridiculous things just that after the war starts off. And I'm not saying anything about the government on either side. I just know that the people often have nothing to do with what's going on in the militaries of governments. And so I have family in Russia who I care very much about, and I have good friends who have family in Ukraine, and I want absolutely the best for all of them, and don't want this to be happening. But so aside from that, though, I liked what he is saying. There's different cultures, and how he was pointing out, though, that most of these cultures have some sort of connection to a spiritual reality. I'm going to skip forward here to this end right quick. This will be the last clip I take from here, and move along.
But and it's you lose everything when you lose your spirituality. If you can carry it around in your pocket and know that what you're trading something spiritual for something that's material, it's going to mean a lot more. It's going to force you to save, and it's going to force you to accumulate savings for your heirs, etc. Yeah, I think you should. I mean, have you talked to the Chinese, and how can you combine with what they want to do with what you guys are doing? I mean, I think it's marvelous what you're doing, and I'm not again.
Stephen, it's the inverse of why I would want, when I get dollars, pounds, euros, I'm incentivized to spend those as quickly as possible before that table that you just touched, before that carrot or that vegetables or whatever it is that will cost more. There'll be more. I'll need more of those next time.
Yes,
so they get rid of them. So that's the inverse of gold, because obviously, and people call it Gresham's law, of course. But on the other hand, it is just, as you say, there's a spiritual side to this. So I'm considering what I'm doing here. I don't want to spend a single gram more than I have to. And so I'll retain that wealth protection as much as I can.
Totally,
but I'm
yes.
protected from the price of those things going up and up and up and up. Or no, they're not going up. It's just costing more dollars to buy them. So this is, I think, why it's so important that people have to step out of this win-lose monetary system and migrate to a solution where, whether you just simply buy the coins and put them in your garden or in your drawer, but this is just a way of doing it on an everyday basis, which is logical, pragmatic. If I want my bullion, I'll just click a button and I'll get it delivered to me. So,
okay, so that was Kinesis money, and again, so what they do is they're like a vaulting, well, go find out from him exactly what they are, but they're basically, from my understanding, a vaulting system that is kind of put on the technology, or the uh, those rails anyway, and so that you have a digital way to pay with your silver. So you can buy X amount of silver with Kinesis, and you can spend that on a card that you get from them, of gold or silver. You can put it in whichever one you want. It will obviously follow the market up and down, and that's a way for you to go to the coffee shop, use it as a credit card, and it just deducts that much out of that many grams out of your account, silver or gold. And if you decide that you want your physical delivered to you, they will send you some bars. That's what these are for. And again, so they have a connection to Citizens for Sound Money, and that's that they had a good connection. Citizens for Sound Money had a good connection with Ian, and that's who I have a good connection with. That's how I got this bar. And so Jim Forsyth was good friends with Ian of Arc Silver Gold Osmium, and that's how I came to know about this bar and get a hold of it. And for anyone looking to get the best deal on silver, gold, osmium, this is the place to go right here, Arc. And this is Ian. Give him a call at 307-264-9441. Tell him the B sent you, and he will get you the best deal out there. So, after I get enough in my physical stack that I'm comfortable, I still think you need to have your own precious metals in case, of whatever else the system goes down or that becomes corrupted or whatever. You don't want your value to be able to be taken away from you, so you want to have your base stack, or at least I do. And but once I get to a certain point, I probably will go into one of these, whether it be Kinesis. There's also Load with David Morgan, has kind of the same type of thing going on there. And I haven't looked too deep into each company, but maybe I'll get both. It's just kind of a way for you to put your fiat into gold and silver and be able to spend them electronically, but still have it backed by the real thing, is the idea there, which I like. So yeah, go watch that whole video. There was a bunch more great information in there. I just kind of thought it was interesting that they were speaking on the monetary system in the big world picture, and he talked a lot about spiritual aspect of it. And then I think that's kind of why I'm trying not to bring too much into my channel. I kind of want to keep it focused on the monetary system, gold and silver, some apiary influence there on, finding and preserving that value that's going to be nutritious for you in the long run, and something that everybody wants and likes. And again, with that ties into my ancient coins, where they have so much to say, and it's often with some type of spiritual connection, be it with an animal or shield and sword, or whatever their reference. It has a statement to it more than just first meets the eye. And now we seem to, as he would agree, live in a place where all we've been taught to take spirit out of everything. There is no spirit, and or if it is, that you look at it in a different way. It's not alive and functional and a part of everyday life. It's some abstract thing, whereas I don't think that's at all how they viewed it. All these other cultures, and he talks about how gold is a sacred thing to so many nations, and it's elemental form, goes into its elemental values and whatnot, and how rare it is and how you can't destroy it. And during the World War, that I think it was France or somewhere they had a bunch of gold and melted it down in an acid and waited for the war to be over and then regain the gold from that. So you can't really destroy it, and there's a lot of unique things about it.